All right, imagine having your child taken from you and sent to live with a complete stranger. It's the reality two adoptive parents in Tennessee face every day.
Their 9-year-old daughter was ordered by a judge to live with her biological father, a convicted criminal, after he got out of prison. And the two sides have been fighting in court ever since.
Family law attorney Justin Thomas is here to explain how this could happen and if it should worry other adoptive parents. Justin, glad to have you back on Live at 9.
Thanks for having me.
I think for a lot of people who hear the story, they will be surprised and perhaps even outraged. What are the rights of adoptive parents in a situation like this?
Well, I did some research on this, and ultimately this has been a court battle that's been going on for quite some time. It appears the technicality is that the father's parental rights were never terminated correctly from the outset. Best I can gather, it appears because he was in jail at the time the adoptive parents got custody of the child, but it's certainly a very difficult story.
And the girl at that time was just 1, so perhaps they thought there was no future trouble, or he hadn't had any contact with the girl up to then? Or?
As I understand it, he got a 15-year sentence, and so when the child was less than 8 years old and you get more than a 10-year sentence, they can terminate your rights based on that particular situation.
Okay.
And then his sentence got reduced from 15 years to 7.5 years, and I guess he then got out of jail, which created all these problems, because as soon as he got out of jail, he went back and I guess filed for custody of his daughter.
So even with him being out of jail, what his rights are restored to him or restored to the individual?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is a parent has constitutionally superior rights to a child versus a third party, even if it's an aunt or grandmother or somebody in the family. So since his rights were never terminated, I think what you see in the court system a lot of times is because it is the person's child, the courts try to keep that person in the child's life. And again, a very difficult position for the judge and everybody involved in this case.
So for adoptive parents, should you, regardless of whether the biological parent has ever had any contact with the child, whether you even know how to find the person, should you take steps to terminate? And can you do that if, let's say, a parent's not present, if you literally can't find them?
Well, you can do that, and you can try to, and it happens a lot. You know, parents disappear, and adoptive parents are trying to find them and things like that. You can terminate their rights and give them notice by what's called publication, because a lot of times people have no idea where the supposed father or mother is.
But they could surface later.
Right.
So public notice, what does that mean?
Notice by publication is where you would put the notice in a local paper and say that there's a court date in 3 to 4 weeks or whenever it may be, and that has to run for a series of weeks in the paper and then gives notice. But I think what makes this case distinguishable from a lot of other adoptive cases, and you don't want all adoptive parents to freak out after hearing this story, is that his rights were never terminated on the front end. A lot of times they are terminated correctly on the front end, and you don't get into these kind of situations.
Yeah, you mentioned just a second or so, Justin, that, you know, obviously you don't want a lot of adoptive parents or potential adoptive parents to freak out, because in a situation like this, obviously there's a need for so many young people to be adopted. But, you know, right here in the state. But at the same time, could there be potential backlash? A lot of parents or potential parents saying, I don't want to even get involved in a mess like this.
I think so. I mean, this is, again, a very difficult story. I have children. A lot of us have children and know people that have adopted children. A very difficult story, and I think it's just one of the things that has to be explained to the people on the front end that are potentially parents, that making sure everything is done correctly on the front end so you don't have these kind of situations.
And there are avenues to do it if the biological parent is not in the picture.
Right.
One quick question. Let's say that biological parent has lived in multiple states. You don't really know if a local notice will do the job. Are you required to put it in papers in all the places where he or might be?
Typically, you're just going to put that notice here in the local paper.
As long as you've done that.
Because it's almost an impossible task to find where they are.
All right, Justin, thank you very much. There's information about the Thomas family law, the address, as well as the phone number.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
Lauren, and those serving in the military often face unique challenges when it comes to child